It was clear he was seeing other women, so I took pics of some of the conversations. Sure enough, a couple of them were his students. Then I sent all the text exchanges between Michael and his students to the dean at the university. I found out he got fired over it and laughed my ass off about it.
You flunked this relationship,
Ooh.
you know? And then just like taking my bag and left.
Welcome back to Delve Deck Stories. I'm Tess, this is Gabe, and today we are going to be reading some confessions from the internet. Our first story comes from Emma. It is from our deep dive beach ball, and the question is, what's the pettiest thing you've done? We love petty people here.
Love them. I can't get enough.
I got my cheating ex fired from his job.
Ooh.
Love that. Off to a great start. Do it. I started dating Michael after we met on a dating app. He made a big deal about how he'd been cheated on before and how trust was so important to him. In hindsight, I should have seen this for the red flag that it was, but lesson learned. I feel like that doesn't have to be a red flag, but if people are insistent on it, then it's kind of like, okay, what are you hiding?
Yeah, there's something here.
Yeah. We dated for 9 months and even talked about moving in together since we were always at one another's apartments anyway. His schedule was a bit erratic because he taught some evening classes and also was supposedly working on a research project with some colleagues. I tried to be really tolerant of his schedule and would plan my own schedule around his availability. He had been working a ton of hours and I thought it would be fun to surprise him at work with dinner one night.
Nope, that's... He wasn't doing work. He's having an affair.
That's right.
He's like, I got to work late. I got these classes. I got to do this stuff.
Don't trust people who work late. Mm-hmm. I went over to the school with his whole meal prepared, and he wasn't there.
Shocker.
I wondered if maybe I'd gotten his schedule wrong, but also started to get the feeling that something was off. When I saw him the next night, I asked him how his research project was going, and he was like, yeah, it was a late night last night, but we're making a ton of progress.
Nope. AKA, he's
progress
having sex with
what?
someone. Yeah. Or on who?
What kind of progress? So now I knew he was lying about where he was the night before, but I played dumb and acted like I didn't know anything. I know that this then sets up like an elaborate plan, but I'm honestly kind of impressed by people who can do that because I would flip out in the moment.
Like also like to hold your emotions on knowing that this person is lying to you and potentially cheating, you know, like I would be like, F that, and I would, you know.
Yeah.
I would want it for me in that moment. I would want to just let it out. Yeah. As opposed to, I'm going to play the long game here.
And I'm going to like look for proof. I guess if you were really in denial about it, but at this point you showed up and he wasn't there.
And he said that he was, and he was there late. So.
I would be like immediately...
Spidey sense is tingling. You know?
Yeah. He spent the night at my place, and I went through his phone after he fell asleep. It was clear he was seeing other women, so I took pics of some of the conversations and started Googling the women and their phone numbers to figure out who they were. Sure enough, a couple of them were his students. Not supposed to do that.
That's a big no-no.
I even saw an exchange about how, of course, he was going to give an A to his best student, wink emoji, and some innuendo about extra credit. So cliche and gross. If you are going to sleep with your students, don't put it in writing.
Yeah. Or you know what? Just don't do it at all.
Don't do it at all. But I am like shocked by people who do.
Oh yeah, they're like emails, texts, love letters, all these things where it's like, come on, man, be better about it.
Be smart.
Yeah, have a burner phone, use a different account. Meet somewhere miles away from the school. Jeez, guys, come on.
Yeah. I knew messing around with students would get him fired, so I collected all my evidence and broke up with him over text the next day. He was totally stunned and wanted to talk about it, but I was like, sorry, this just isn't working out for me. I feel like I need a relationship with someone who has more time for me, and blocked his number. Honestly, love that. He definitely doesn't deserve...
I would have maybe included a line of like, you flunked this relationship.
Ooh.
You know? And then just like taking my bag and left.
Then I sent all the text exchanges between Michael and his students to the dean at the university and told them they might want to look into this professor who was dating his students and possibly inflating their grades because of it. I found out he got fired over it and laughed my ass off about it. I have no idea if he even realized I was the one who told on him.
Ooh, that's even, I don't know. That's kind of,
it's a lot more badass, but I would 100%
still want to take
want
credit. I'd be like, I f***ed your life up.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did it.
I would definitely in the petty like core of my being, I would definitely want that person to be like, let them know it was me, you know, kind of thing. Like, I want you to know that you can't f with me or mess around with me or do this to any other woman in the future, because we will come after you. And instead of being like, well, somebody slipped up somewhere and somebody saw something.
One of my students maybe told me, you know, I guess hopefully he learned his lesson. Maybe
probably didn't.
Probably not. But let us know in the comments. Would you be able to pull off this scheme, or would you just show your hand immediately? I would honestly have screwed this whole thing up, because I would have gotten mad immediately. So I would have never collected the evidence.
Right. I mean, it's the instant gratification of saying like, you're in the wrong, I'm in the right, versus being like, there's a delayed gratification of, if I play this right, then I can really sit in this. I'm
not as scheming as I want to be.
Because there's a couple points in there so far where it was like, you had the opportunity to either be like, screw you, I know, versus let me sit, digest, collect, and then get everything ready and send it off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like at any one of those moments I would have been like, oh, screw you.
Yeah. I would be the same way. All right, our next story is from Julie. This is from our venting edition, and it is, what is your not my proudest moment story?
I have a lot of those.
This is secretly Gabe's story. I hired a date to take me to my homecoming dance.
I mean, maybe it is.
I was a chubby, nerdy teenager and got picked on constantly all through school.
Definitely me.
Terrible.
No, definitely not me.
You're like, I was the bully.
Yeah. Also, no, I never went to my homecoming, so.
Oh.
That's not true. I did. I never went to my prom. No, I never went to my prom. Okay. That's what I did.
I worked at an ice cream shop in the mall, and the popular kids would come by to get ice cream and taunt me.
This sounds like set up for like an 80s movie.
Yeah, this happened in the 80s. Bullying doesn't happen anymore.
It's not cool, guys. Don't bully.
They were always going on about how I was never going to get a boyfriend and making fun of me for being a virgin. The whole thing was so stupid, but they really got to me, especially because it was true. I was 17 and had never been kissed or been on a date. I just high school kids are so mean, because honestly, you're 17.
Yeah, I mean, the grand scheme of things, in the moment, it's so intense and like detrimental, and all of these things, just like so much emotion. I mean, then again, you're going through puberty and stuff, so there's like a lot of emotion. And then you look back and you're like, man, that was so dumb.
That didn't matter at all.
And
if you're in high school, whatever you're freaking out about, it's fine.
And if you're a bully, go fuck yourself.
One day they came in and started this bullshit, and I told them, actually, I did have a boyfriend that I met at camp last summer, and we were in a long-distance relationship. Classic.
They go to a different school kind of excuse. All right.
They, of course, didn't believe me, but I stuck to my story and made up all sorts of details about the imaginary boyfriend. Jason is going to art school next year. He is super hot and plays lacrosse. He mails me love letters all the time. After we get out of high school, we are going to be together. The teasing continued despite the imaginary boyfriend. So one afternoon, I told them, you're all going to look like idiots soon, because my boyfriend is going to be in town for homecoming, and he is taking me to the dance.
Oh, boy. Craigslist, here we come.
Now, I did not have a boyfriend, and I had 2 weeks to come up with one. My mom suggested we hire a date to shut the kids up. What? Your mom was in on this?
I mean, supportive, honestly.
Very supportive. It's so...
You typically just hear this... because you typically hear the story of like, oh, well, your cousin is available. Why don't you go to the homecoming with them? And you're like, oh, Mom, Dad, what are you talking about, you know?
Yeah. I would never reveal this information to my mom.
No, never. But the fact that the mom's in on it, all right.
All right. I don't know. An Escort. Let us know what you think. Oh, that's what the next part of the story is. And called around to local escort services.
Shut the front door. This is about me.
This was before the internet. To find a suitable rent-a-date. I love rent-a-date.
Wow.
Anyway.
Sounds like a profitable business.
We literally got out the yellow pages and called escort services and asked if they had any 18 to 21-year-old guys we could hire for an event. I know that she's a teenager, but I don't like that this is a thing.
I'm
it
assuming,
so bad.
who knows? I don't know when this is, but part of me wants to hope that the business owners taking down these reservations is like, how old is the date? And then they're like, oh, we can't do this. Legally, we can't do this.
Mom deemed that age range to be passable for a boy who could be a senior in high school. Sure, they do it in the movies all the time.
Sometimes they even have 30-year-olds playing 18-year-olds.
Frequently. But then they're like, but a 20-year-old has to play a 30-year-old. We couldn't actually hire a 30-year-old to yuck. Not the point. My feelings about Hollywood. Okay. One service had a couple of options, and Mom and I went over to their offices to look through their headshots, like we were actually casting for a movie. It was actually sort of fun, but also, I admit, very pathetic.
Mm-hmm. I would have just been like, oh, here's a Craigslist ad for an indie film.
You're going to get a weird person.
Through that?
A Craigslist ad?
Yeah, I never know,
I guess.
Look, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and they're at an escort service, so it's like, I think anything's game at this point.
Yeah, I still can't believe your mom's in on this.
Hey.
We found a gorgeous 19-year-old guy that legitimately looked like a Disney prince, and I was like, him, as soon as I saw him. The idea of me being with this guy was absurd, but go big or go home, right? I mean, you're paying him, so you might as well.
Is she paying him, or is Mom paying him?
Mom's probably paying.
Yeah.
I mean, if Mom's going to be in on this, I'm like, if it was
Mom's idea.
It's Mom's idea. You better be paying for it. My date showed up for homecoming looking as dreamy as his pics, and I explained to him the whole backstory about needing him to pretend to be my boyfriend. I told him, your name is Jason, you live in Portland. You are just visiting for the week. You play lacrosse, you're an artist. He just laughed and said, I am whoever you want me to be, with a 1,000-watt grin. Perfect. Wow, this is actually also the beginning of a romantic comedy.
It is.
From the 80s.
Yeah, from the 80s, some from the 90s, but it's definitely that, she was a nobody, she was a nerd, you know, and then boom, Cinderella, she was the hot girl.
You just gotta take your glasses off, girly. The escort thought this whole thing was adorable and was down to play along. Looking back, this guy was gayer than Christmas, but we were all teenagers in the early 1990s, so it was not obvious to me or my classmates at the time. Again. Classic rom-com from the 80s. Showing up to homecoming with my hunky date was priceless and worth the money we paid to rent him. I know, but I don't like the phrasing. You should have seen the looks on the mean kids' faces when I walked in with his arm around me. The guy was an excellent sport about the whole thing, and it was probably the most fun job he ever had in his escorting career. I even got my first kiss that night. It was pretty chaste and only a second, but I was on cloud 9 for days about it. It's a totally embarrassing but also kind of funny story now that I'm old and married and no longer have to worry about mean kids. That's a solid internet confession. Let us know what you think about it in the comments.
Would you hire an escort? Also, I mean, it is really the easiest job possible. There's no...
Yeah, nothing weird has to happen.
Just a kiss. Just a
little kiss.
Just a little peck on the lips. And everyone else, super jelly.
I mean, don't bully.
Yeah.
That's the moral of that story.
If you do
we'll come after you. Our next story is from Hannah. This is from our venting deck, and it is, what's your not my proudest moment story? I allowed my little brother to blackmail me into doing his homework for a year. Wow. We were talking about mean older siblings, I think, in a previous episode, but younger siblings can get it too.
Yeah, they,
Although blackmail, I wonder if she was being mean.
Yeah, but I also feel like when you're a younger sibling, you can get away with a lot more because at that point, the parents are like, oh, God,
yeah.
Whatever, the other kid can take care of
blackmail your sister, it's fine.
And they learn. They very mischievous.
Can't trust them, shifty.
Look at those eyes.
I was a pretty good kid and always had good grades, but my parents were incredibly strict and wouldn't let me do anything. I wasn't allowed to stay out past 9 p.m. I wasn't allowed to date. They wanted me to live like a nun. My senior year of high school, I started secretly dating someone, and I began sneaking out of the house to see him. Our favorite thing to do was go to midnight movies at the Art House Theater and then get food at the diner, which meant I was out till 3 a.m. on Saturday nights. My parents would have lost their minds if they knew.
Yeah, that's a long time to be away from home,
I'm impressed by parents who don't catch their kids doing this. They're just sleeping.
They're just like, I need my 8 hours.
Yeah. I guess they trust their kid a lot. That's nice. Couldn't be me.
Never had that.
To avoid suspicion, I would make a point to go out early in the evenings and claim I was doing something they'd permit, like studying at a girlfriend's house or going to the mall with girls from school. I would usually actually do whatever I said I was doing, but the idea was to make them think I'd gone out and had my fun and was done for the night. I guess, they believe that.
It feels like a busy day. You go to school.
That's a lot of work.
I'm just saying.
This is a Saturday.
Oh, is it Saturday?
She did it on Saturday nights.
Okay. All right. I was thinking it was school night. So I was like, damn. She goes to school, comes out at 3, goes home or hangs out with friends.
Every night.
And then she's like, oh, dinner with the fam. Then she's like, all right, I'm going to go to bed. Not. Then leaves, goes to the diner in a movie. And it's just like... How much sleep are you getting? Some of the most important sleep you need like 8-9 hours sleep when you're in high school. You're still growing, developing. It's very important.
I didn't sleep a lot in high school. After I came home, I would put on my PJs and pretend to go to bed, and I'd wait for everyone else in the house to go to bed too, and then sneak out my bedroom window around 11 p.m., sneaking back in during the wee hours of the morning. This scheme worked out fine for the first couple weeks, but one night I came home and my 13-year-old brother was in my room waiting for me. He nearly gave me a heart attack because he was in my bed in the dark when I snuck in. That is like a classic sibling move.
It's like when you come home and your parent is in the living room in the corner chair with the lights off and like, oh, where have you been?
Yes. That was, my parents definitely stayed up. If I was out, my curfew wasn't 9 p.m., but if I was out, they were like, my dad was up and waiting.
They're like, okay, 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes, where have you been? I told him I had just been at a late night movie and begged him not to tell my parents. He said he would only stay mum if I agreed to do his homework for the rest of the school year, and I had to invite him along to a late night movie. Good for you. You gotta see those opportunities and take them.
Because also, like, the other thing too is when a younger sibling is like, hey, I'm going to blackmail you into something. It usually ends up just being like, I just wanted to hang out.
Yeah.
They're like, I just wanted to go see. They're like, I just want to go see this movie.
Yeah,
like, I have a younger brother. With your friends,
and you're like, no, and then you're like, oh man, I guess I have to now.
Like I look back and I think of my relationship with my brother because we're 5 years apart, and so when you're younger, that age gap is so big. And so I remember having my friends over, and then we would leave, and then he would be like, oh, I want to come. And I'd be like, no, you can't come. And then looking back now, I'm just like, oh, man, I feel like such a butthead. Because at the time, he's probably just like so sad.
I know.
He had fun with everyone there, and then he just couldn't continue with the party somewhere else. And he's like, I guess I'll just stay home with mom.
I did the similar things to my sister. I would have done anything to keep my parents from finding out what I was up to, so I agreed to his demands. I snuck him out the next weekend with me and let him third wheel it on my date, which he thought was the coolest thing ever. I also did all of his homework for the rest of the school year, and it was the highest marks in school he ever got. It was hard not to laugh at the dinner table when my parents would praise him for his grades. I went away to college the next year, and my brother was on his own with his schoolwork again. Of course, his grades slipped, and my parents were like, I don't understand what happened. You did so well last year.
They're like, this weird kind of bell curve of activity happened where you were like not doing so well, then you did really well, and then you were back down this.
To this day, my parents have no idea I was dating, sneaking out, or that I did my brother's homework for a year. I guess if your parents are super strict, maybe you never tell them that, but that feels like a story I would tell my parents at some point. On their deathbed. I would by now be like, guess what happened?
I was going out every single weekend, and you didn't even know.
Our final story comes from Desi, and it is from our original deck. It's what's something most people don't know about you. I've been lying to everyone about my computer science degree for over 20 years. It's a long time.
It is.
My parents really wanted me to get a college degree and pressured me to go to a top school. I was a really smart kid and got excellent grades, but I really hated school. The idea of going for even 4 more years sounded like torture. Still, I wanted to make my parents happy. I received a perfect score on the SATs, got scholarships to all of the schools I applied to, and decided to go to MIT.
Wow. Smarty pants.
Yeah. brag. I decided to get a computer science degree because I liked math and had always been good with computers. My first semester was horrible. I hated going to class. I hated living in the dorms. I hated all of it. I still got good grades, but I knew it wasn't for me. I ended up completing my freshman year and then decided to drop out. I knew this would make my parents angry, but I couldn't do it anymore. So instead of telling them, I lied and said I was still in school.
What were you doing? I want to know what was going on in the background, you know? You say you're in school and you're studying for this degree, but where were... I'm sure we'll find out, but...
They were sending me money for rent while I was there, so I got an apartment and pretended I was still getting a degree. I felt bad about it, but not bad enough to tell them the truth. This is, again, like parents who don't find these things out.
Yeah, and also, I don't know how long they were sending her money, or, you know, whatever, but, like, that was just the freshman year. So you still got sophomore, junior, senior.
3 years
of money coming in for rent. What are you doing?
While I was living in Massachusetts and not going to school, you're about to find out, I taught myself how to code and got really good at it. Once I was supposed to be in my senior year, I started applying to software engineering jobs. Most of these jobs required a degree, which I obviously did not have. But I was already lying to my parents, so what was one more person?
Right? What's another big lie?
This is once you start, it just spirals. I said I was finishing a computer science degree at MIT on my resume. I ended up getting an entry-level engineering job at a top tech company. They never asked for any proof or transcripts, and I nailed the technical interview, so I doubt they really cared.
I mean, that's at this point, it's just that's on the company.
Yeah,
if you're not doing due diligence, then,
I feel like with certain things, it's like, I don't know, if you're capable of coding, like, why do you need...
Yeah.
You don't have to have a bachelor's degree.
Right. I mean, like, it's people who do, like, boot camps and stuff. Some people are self-taught, you know, it's, you know.
If you're good at it.
If you're good, you can do the job. There's no reason why you can't. And now, some places like Google and others, they've gotten rid of their, like, weird, obscure questions that they would, like, the brain teaser ones. They've gotten also rid of requirements to have college degrees. So it really shows you higher education is a load of shit, and we all wasted a lot of money.
It should be cheaper for what it is.
It should be way more affordable, for sure.
I know I certainly didn't get my money's worth. When it came time for graduation, I told my parents I had to move for this new job, so I would have to miss it. They were disappointed about that, but so proud of me for getting such a good job right out of school that they didn't question it. I included a computer science degree on my resume for a few more years, but once I'd proven myself as a proficient engineer, I started leaving it off.
Yep.
I've never revealed this to my parents or any of my employers. My dad has since passed, and I plan to let my mother live out her life believing I got a computer science degree from MIT as well.
Because that would kill her. To find out, be like, you did what?
You did what? At this point, yeah, I guess maybe that's one. Maybe I just, like, tell my parents too much now. I'm just like, yeah, guess what?
Yeah, sounds like
I never
it.
got that degree. But I would have to, if I was, like, wildly successful, I'd want to be like, guess what? You were wrong. I didn't have to. Also, you sent me a lot of money.
Also, I don't owe you.
Also, I'm not paying you back. Yeah, no, I understand why you lied to them.
Yeah, that's one of those.
Never mind.
I don't know if I would ever tell my parents if I dropped out of school.
And lied about it. Yeah, let us know in the comments if you would tell your parents later in life that you lied about something so
on
big.
the deathbed, you know?
No, you just let it, if it's really important to them and they really like it. I'm honestly surprised that these parents, like, never, I feel like they really didn't question a lot. There's no, like, can I see your diploma?
Right.
Can I see your, I
and
guess you're
like
an adult.
I lost it, you know?
Yeah, it never came in the mail.
Yeah, which I'm also surprised that nobody followed up to be like, do you went to this school? Because some places will be like, they will look into references. They will get your transcripts. Depending on, like, especially entry level.
Lucky. I don't think anybody ever checked my transcripts.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember having to
work
send
in a
mine or, like,
technical
provide.
job,
Yeah.
So
okay.
they probably just didn't care. Apparently, this person is so smart, it didn't matter.
I mean,
That's what happens. Be smart. Don't bully people. Lie to your parents.
Exactly.
That's it for Delve Tech Stories. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like, subscribe, check out some of our other videos. And if you have a crazy story that you would like to share with us, you can go to share.delvedeck.com and pick up one of your own decks.